Thank you for all coming out on a chilly night, but obviously the first one of the season always tends to be a little bit less people than later on, but hopefully what you all gain from tonight will be worth taking notes on, Sally.
I've got a whole book on you.
Somebody else said that about me once. Obviously Joe's been here a while now. He's been here sort of 7 weeks now. He's been here, but this is the first one that Joe's doing, so I'm sure you all do know Joe, but it'd be nice to welcome Joe. So welcome. As you probably are aware, we had changed the format in the last couple so that we all did individual things, but because it is Joe's first one, I thought that was a bit harsh to go, Joe, do a section. So I'm going to do back to the old format where I'll ramble on. I know. So I'll ramble on, people will jump in and I'll step aside. So what I would say is it's probably not as formatted as done in class because I would like a little bit more of questions from you all tonight. Tonight's basis is effective practice through drills. So the main thing about tonight would be we're going to try and not talk about the swing as such, but more ways that you can achieve the known parts of a golf swing, how to strike a ball, etc., etc. Please, at any point, feel free to put your hand up and just say, Harry, can I go out and get the loo or whatever it is. But please feel free to ask any questions because if you're thinking it, somebody else is obviously thinking it as well, I imagine. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by, as I say, common issues and drills to effectively practice. So we'll start with the main ones, which is, I'm sure you can all appreciate, other than balance, which is the most important thing there is in the entire golf swing. Balance is the most important thing, but balance is side effect normally as you do strikes. And no matter what else you do in the golf game, if you can't strike the ball consistently, you're going to struggle to be consistent. Period. For those of you who don't know, there is a thing, without getting too detailed, there's a thing called gear effect, which is if you hit it at the heel of the toe of the golf club, even if you hit it perfectly square on, but you hit it at the heel or the toe of the golf club, the ball will bend. So if you don't strike it at the middle of the club, you're going to get bend even with a perfect swing. So we need to ensure that you get strike in some way, shape or form. So there's two ways of striking a ball, correctly, incorrectly, whichever way you want to look at it. There is the strike with regards to effectively the horizontal, which is to do with fat and thin. Do you hit behind the ball or do you hit up on the ball? And then there's the second type of strike, which is do you pull the club in from you or do you push it away from you to hit out the toe of the heel? Okay, so what we'll deal with first of all is fats and thins. Just so you're aware, a fat is the same as a thin.
I'm fat, you thin.
Every time. And look how simple you are. A fat and a thin are the same thing. The basic premise of a fat is the bottom of the arc, i.e. the low point of the club head's travel, is before the golf ball. So if you think in terms of, there's the golf ball, we're heading that direction, a fat and a thin both come from the fact that the bottom of the swing, the lowest part that club gets to, is behind the golf ball. A fat is when the club breaks the surface and goes, dunches in. A thin is when it doesn't break the surface, bruises the top surface, but by the time it gets to the ball, it's now on the up. So a fat and a thin are both caused by bottoming out the arc before the ball. So what we've got to find is, in the drill's tendency, is how can we get you to strike the ball correctly by getting the bottom of the arc further to the left if you're a right-handed golfer. You all with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So the logical way to do that is to actually reference where the bottom of your arc is. Simple thing. So instead of hitting golf balls initially, the best way of doing it, unfortunately obviously can't do it on a map, but is to simply go like that with your foot and leave a line on the ground. Set up to the line, so if I do it with a teaching stick just so I can sort of demonstrate it. So you've left a line on the turf. Oh, good, somebody to demonstrate. So you've now drawn the line on the turf, so imagine that's the line on the turf. You set up to the line as if it's the ball, make a swing, where's your divot? Reference to that line. So take some divots, see where the divot starts. the very first point of entry to the turf needs to be after the line. Because what most people don't generally get in the game of golf is that you hit a golf ball, thank you very much, misspent youth, you hit a golf ball on a descending blow with every club but the driver. So in order for that to happen, the club needs to still be travelling downwards by the time it gets to the ball, so therefore the divot, the low point, starts after the ball. Make sense?
Yeah. Even with a fairway wood?
Even with a fairway wood. It's a little bit more of a bruising strike with a fairway wood as opposed to an actual descending strike, but it still needs to be slightly after the ball. Because for a ball to climb up loft, the ball needs to be riding up, therefore the club's got to be riding down in that sense. If you just push, you'll tend to thin. If you just tend to bottom out of the bottom of the arc, you'll tend to thin it a little bit. So always get the strike slightly after the ball. So once you've done a few swings and you realise, crikey, I keep on hitting my strike back here, I keep hitting my strike back here, keep hitting my strike back here, we've got to find a way of you getting your strike that way. So many of you will know my old drill, which is, I'll use some bright yellow tees just because it will show it up nicely. There you are. So I know many of you will have heard me do this one before, but if you think in terms of, there's a ball there, hit a ball, make sure you catch that tee. Because if you bottomed out before that, by the time you've hit the ball and swung through, you'll be missing the top of that tee. Now realistically, you should be able to hit a tee peg that's only the top of the cup of an old style, old fashioned type of a tee peg. So if you push it all the way in, you should still be hitting the top of the cup. Up to 8 inches after the ball. So if you think in terms of the club makes contact with the ground as it enters the turf, but it's obviously still slightly going down as it enters the turf. So it's going down and then comes out the other side. So you are talking something along, well, you think about it in a bunker, if you think of your divots in a bunker, they're not that long. They're that long. So that's the entry and exit into turf. So we're looking at about between 6 to 8 inches on most shots. The key part of that though is there's no depth to the divot. Really important. People think a divot is a sign that you've hit down nicely. The divot's no good if you've taken a big stake wedge out of it. All you're trying to do is effectively just bruise and cut the top of the grass off. We don't want you to actually go down deep into the turf itself. If you were playing on Bermuda grass or something abroad, you probably wouldn't even get down to soil, you'd only just be taking the grass itself. But it does mean that your divot has moved that side. Immediately you'll lose facts and thins. You might find you get slightly different shots coming out of it, how you've got to address that, but at least that's a way of referencing where the bottom of your arc is and where your strike point is. Does that make sense so far? Happy with that, yeah? Okay. Anything to add to that, chaps? Right. Okay. The second thing about that is if you're struggling to get to that one, I'm a great believer in is find a drill to make you do it correctly. If you can't do it correctly, find a drill to stop you doing it wrong. If you get my logic here. But always try and do it correctly first. If you're struggling to do it correctly, put something down there. So put, I have to say, going back years and years ago when I was a junior, I used to smoke. So I used to put cigarettes down. I soon didn't want to hit my cigarettes. I made sure I didn't get my cigarettes, they were too expensive. So if you put something down there, you can imagine if you put something down there set up here, there's no way you're going to do that because you think, oh, I don't want to hit that thing. So it's going to make you move that way a little bit more. Try and do it correctly first with the T-peg drill that I showed initially. If not, find a way of making yourself not do it wrong, if you get my logic on that. Does that make sense?
So you don't bring the ball back at all, you just make sure you take the divot later.
Slightly open-ended question. You could bring the ball back, but only if you're bringing the ball back because your ball position was wrong, which is why you can't hit it, as opposed to, I can't hit the bottom of the arc in the right place, screw that, I'll move the ball back. Well, that's going to have implications in other ways, so you're better off trying to teach yourself to hit it in the correct way. But that's why I have to say, you've probably seen the boys doing it as well, very seldom really do much without doing your crosshairs, because effectively you always got your reference points, you can always check. In fact, I had a lesson only today, my last lesson today, where the chapter ball position was almost on his back foot. He absolutely convinced he got it in the right place, but it's not until you actually put something down that you realise where it should be. So just once in a while, you do your crosshead. The real way to do that is to do it like that, and then it's not going to interfere with you in any way, shape or form, so you can just check your ball position. Obviously you can always do that for a driver. I don't know what you boys are on it, but I'm a fixed ball position. I have to say I'm a fixed ball position person. I like everything to be in the same ball position except a driver. You know, the old school way was to have it moving backwards and forwards a little bit. I don't mind a little bit of leeway, but in general, my theory on it is if you've got 13 clubs in your bag that you swing, why would you have 13 different swings? You've got to hit in different places, hit it in the same spot, and you've got consistent arc given you at the end of the day. So
fixed compared to what?
Sorry?
Fixed compared to what?
The old move ball position. Years ago, it used to be a sand arm was almost at the back of the stance.
Fixed compared to left foot, right foot. You know.
Always left foot.
But fixed compared to left
yeah,
foot.
good
Because people say it looks like it moves because you get
absolutely,
narrower in
because you get narrower. Ball position is always relative for a right-handed golfer. So everything we'll do is reference right-handed golfer. But for a right-handed golfer, the ball position is always relative to the left foot. But as you get bigger in your clubs, you'll tend to get bigger in the stance. Which means it looks like it's going further forward. It's not. It's just that when you've got a sand iron and your feet are narrower, that ball doesn't look anywhere near as far forward as it did with a 4-iron. I promise you though, your stance width will change depending on the club. You don't have to think about it. The longer the club gets, the more you'll naturally stand a bit more there, and the shorter the club gets, the more you'll stand. Yeah, it's just what everyone tends to do. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Any questions on it? Everyone happy with that?
So it's never in the middle of the stance then?
It can be on some short game shots, although I prefer it forward even on those. It can. The problem with putting it in the middle is, if you think about every other sport you play, virtually bar hockey, you always move on to something to drive it forwards. So to have the ball in the middle of the stance, you've got to hold back to not drive that ball forwards. So we're always trying to squeeze and penetrate the ball forwards. So there's the middle of the stance. I don't know what you like to think, but I'm not a huge fan of having it further back, I have to say. It also has implications with regards to most golfers can't get the ball elevated enough. And by putting the ball back, you strike it better because you fake strike it better. But now your angle of attack gets steeper on it because it's further back, so now you can't get the loft on it. So you'll find you'll stand on the range, hit the 5-wood, and you'll think, God, I nailed that. It goes knee high to a glass opposite, it's not going anywhere. So it's about presenting correct loft onto the club as well. Yeah? Anything to add to that so far, lads? No?
Got 3 wise monkeys there.
We're not having that. Okay, so that is in general strike with regards to downward blow and compression. The only other strike that's a difference to that is an upward blow, which comes with a driver. Okay, a couple of really important things to do with the driver. Driver is the only club in the bag that hit on an upswing. Ready? It's slightly exaggerate the height of the tee, but it just will prove my point anyway. Okay, so ball position for the driver, we're basically looking at on the inside heel, really, so the front heel is what you're looking for. The reason for that is, do not think your golf swing changes. It doesn't change. Your ball position has changed the interaction of the club to the ball, you haven't. And what I mean by that is, in order to hit up on that, we still want the bottom of the arc to be in the same point it was earlier on. Just happens to be now the ball's forward of that bottom of the arc. So by definition, you're going to catch it slightly on the arc. It's generally now regarded between -2 and -4 for most amateurs. Some of the tour pros can get up to, -2 and +2. For some tour pros now, they're hitting it 8, 9 on the up. Some of them, it's unbelievable how up they hit some of these now. -2 being a downward blow,
Right.
+4, +6 being an upward blow. The angle going, up or down, up being a plus, down being a negative. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the bottom of the arc to happen just before the ball, so the club is on its way up for impact. So there's a couple of things we need to do on that. The logical one, as I'm sure you've all worked out, is have the ball further forward. That's a logical one. The second one, and the one that I personally think is the one that most amateurs get wrong, and you'll have seen a video I've already done on this, do not change your 6-iron, 8-iron, 9-iron setup to hit a driver differently. Maintain what your setup is and move the club. And what I mean by that is, if you were hitting a 6-iron, it would be there. That's where you'd be setting up for a 6-iron. Now, if I was to hit this driver correctly, I would stay here and move the club forward. That club is forward of me. So in effect, I'm behind it. What amateurs always tend to do is go, oh, ball's forward. And you try and keep your relationship to the ball as you would for a 6-iron. No, because now you've got the bottom of the arc's now just moved across to too far forwards. You with me? So what we call spinal tilt, which comes from the fact that on every golf shot there should be an element of spinal tilt because the left side is higher than the right side. But when you then set up to a driver, don't lose that spinal tilt and lean towards it. Stay back here and just move the club forward. So you can see that club's quite a bit further forward than me. So I've now really am loaded to hit on the up. Does that make sense? Yeah? The great thing about drive is you can't take a divot and let me quantify. It's hard to hit a divot because you've got such a big back edge on it, it's designed to skid off the turf. The only time you're ever going to dig a driver is if the front edge hits into. So that's one of the reasons why we want you to hit slightly on the up on that, in that sense. I know I can feel Lee itching to say something behind me just this moment. There we go. I can feel him there. I can tell.
So just to add to that, if you think about the swing as a U shape, going back, down, bottom out, as Harry says, and then going up, if I reference here, what we're not changing, like Harry was saying, is hitting down or hitting up. It's changing where that bottom of the swing is through your ball position. So with the driver, you'd see that. And then if I move that forward, the bottom of the swing's there, slightly in front. You can see the club is still travelling down on that line rather than travelling up on that line. That's just got a nice visual to see that. But, yeah, we
understand it now. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. But what we hear people saying is they try to hit down with an iron and hit up with a driver. It doesn't change. It's the same swing.
It's the same swing. Yeah. The ball position changes.
So are you saying the bottom of the arc moves?
No. He was just trying to show that if he moved the bottom of the arc, it demonstrated how the bottom of the arc doesn't move.
Oh,
I'll be quiet. Do you want to just do that again?
I thought you said
Just do that again. Do it for the driver.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So where it'd be hitting a 6-iron would be there. So you can see that's pretty much the bottom of the arc.
Yes.
Yeah. But if he moves the ball position forward, you can see that. You can see that by the time he gets to the driver, you're quite a bit on the up.
Yeah. I thought you were moving your arc along the bottom of your arc.
Oh, so am I now back now? Can I? Carry on.
Harry, quite off.
Oh. Me?
No, yeah, what? Well, one of the things I'm sort of not sure about is I know if you're driving off not with the driver, like you're using a 5-wood or something on a shorter hole.
Yeah.
I know you say use a little green peg.
Yeah.
Why isn't it okay to have maybe a blue tee or something and then do the same sort of thing that you would with the driver? I put the
Perfectly logical question. Perfectly logical question.
Put the board a bit further forward. What are the pros and cons of that?
The way a club is
That's
designed.
right, yeah.
A driver has absolutely nothing up there. It's all bottom weighted. The sweet spot on a driver is much higher than it is on a 3-wood, a 5-wood, or certainly an iron. So a 3-wood, 5-wood, and iron needs to be hit more down here.
Right.
A driver is designed to be hit further up there. The way it's presented, because you've got to remember, if you tilt that face like that, you're actually presenting a different part of the face than you are if you're hitting down there. So the way a driver is made to be hit higher up the face. A 3-wood, obviously because they're usable off the ground, off the deck, they have to be usable to be hit lower down the face. So therefore you don't want to be teeing it up here, because the chances are you'll end up trying to scoop it up. The secondary thing about that is as soon as you get any height on the tee peg, people will automatically try to hit up on it. And the reality of a 3-wood, a 5-wood and an iron is you are trying to compress them forwards. It's only a driver that the sweet spot moves higher up so that you're trying to hit it higher up the face. That's basically what. It's a great question because it logically seems like, why not tee up high with a 3-wood?
Yeah.
You'll probably find your roof fit all the time. You just get straight underneath it and pop straight up in you. So I have to say I'm an advocate of everything but a driver pretty much should be hit off one of those lime green minute tees because of the way that the club's designed to be hit. A blue tee and a yellow tee is really a con to yourself to, oh good, I got underneath it and got it away, but it's not really a solid strike. Let me just go into that another because it's actually a great question, because what people don't realise is on the grooves on the golf club, majority of amateurs hit majority of their shots on the bottom 2 grooves of a golf club. We all, as amateurs generally, but you will thin it slightly. Virtually nobody hits a ball on an iron up there. Well, the sweet spot on an iron is between 4th and 5th groove. That's where the spin, because you're supposed to be compressing down the ball so the ball rides up the face. But irons are now made to help us out with all these undercut cavities and things, so that you can hit it right off the bottom, because they know majority of people do hit off the bottom. But a driver doesn't have that benefit. If you hit a driver off the bottom of the driver, all you'll do is get a dead, you'll just get that and just nothing happens. You just don't get any strike out. So it's really important you get the ball to ride up the face. Make sense, yeah? Anything else? Why are you laughing at me? No. Okay, so does that make sense for the downward and upward part of the strike? Okay. The next part then.
Can I ask, and this may be specific to me, which is why you've told me I got it all wrong. I'm carrying with me a thought from one of the lessons that I shouldn't be hitting down.
Absolutely.
With my iron.
Absolutely.
Just take me through how that squares with what you just said.
My club's up there, top of the backswing, and I want to hit that ball. Where's the club going?
Down.
I don't have to go down, mate. That club's coming down on its own accord. It's going to come down on its own accord. As long as you don't prop it down and you create some arc with it, it is going to be coming down. You can't go up midway through the swing, you're going to miss the ball, so it is coming down. The point of it, though, is that you're maintaining a radius to the swing, and the radius to the swing means that the bottom of the arc tends to happen. We spend our lives as coaches saying to people, stop hitting down on the golf ball. Because I always reference it in this term. If you think in this term, ice hockey, I know it's not a sport we play, but it's just a way of referencing. In ice hockey, they do a thing called a slap shot. Well, to slap it, the club head is going down. Where are my hands going? Up. My hands are going up. The second my hands are going down to hit down at the ball, you now have to manipulate or do something to have not extended your arc too wide away from you. Does that make sense? So you're effectively a radius, spoke of a wheel, and that club will catch on a downswing all the way through. The reason you'd say, most people then say, well surely if you set up on the ground you're not going to go under the ground, is because when you set up on the ground here, your arms aren't tense. When you're swinging at speed, we're getting a little bit more tense, so therefore the extension is slightly more than you would have done normally, therefore you're underneath the ball. So that's why the arc is very slightly wider through impact than it would have been if you're set up. But that's just centrifugal force effectively again. Which leads me on beautifully to using, because you guys don't all have some of the gadgets we do, so we're trying to do everything today with stuff that you can all use. This is Peter's wife's dressing gown. Now, simple thing, you can do it with a tie, dressing gown, whatever you like. If you want to get the idea of what an arc is to be constant, hold that, maintain, maintain, maintain. That will teach you what the arc and radius of a golf swing should be. What the majority of you will do, and I promise you'll do it, is you'll hit a point, everyone will be slightly different, where you'll get to a point and go, it's a bit hard work, and that's when it starts to do that. That's now when you've lost your radius. That's now when you've got to find the ball. Now you're in trouble. So now you're in trouble. So if you think in terms of, this shouldn't change because the relationship of your arms is always to your shoulders and to your rib cage. Actually, one of the things I've thought in the last couple of years, don't think shoulders, think rib cage, because your rib cage moves your shoulders, but your shoulders can move without your rib cage, if you see what I mean. So if you think rib cage, if you turn your rib cage away, my arm follows it. But I can move my arms without my rib cage. And look what happens to that straight away. I have to say one of the most common problems of people with poor posture, which I'm going to sound sexist, but tends to be a lady's thing of tucking the backside in and being a bit scared this way, is when it gets a little bit vertical with the spine, it ends up being a bit that way. That's why it really is important to create angles at address so that you can start using rib cage back and through. That, who does that remind you of?
Tommy.
That's me. Who said Tommy? That's Tommy. That's exactly what it is. It's Tommy Fleetwood's the end. Who's probably one of the most consistent ball strikers out there at the minute? Tommy. So it's something you can do to find your radius to make sure you're not chopping up and down on it to get a strike. Answer that, chaps? Very good. Very good. Okay, right, so the next thing. Next thing is then the toe and the heel element. So if you think in terms of we've done effectively the descending blow, not hitting down but descending blow, which then makes sure that you get the strike at the bottom of the arc. We now need to do whether or not you hit out the toe or the heel. Well, logically, if your radius is constant and you're not moving around, you should come back to the same spot, in theory, once again with a fixed radius. None of us do that consistently, so there's ways of making sure you do. Simplest little drill in the world. Put T-pegs down. The only thing about this one inside, because of the nature of the shaft coming out of the head, this one really needs to be almost flush to the ground. The one on the heel end, the one nearest you. But put T-peg up, put one in the ground, and hit shots. Now,
you're in danger there.
if you stand there and hit shots, if you stand there and hit, I always go left, don't I? And obviously you clip one of those tees. So you stand there and you clip the inside of the outside tee. You might not know what the cause is, but you now know whichever tee you hit, the ball's on the other way. So if you hit the inside tee, you can imagine you probably put the ball on the toe. Just so you understand that. If that started there, and I now hit the inside tee, ball's gone to the toe of the club. Or vice versa, if you start hitting the outside tee, the ball's gone towards the heel of the club. Now the dreaded word we all hate, but the S-H-A-N-K, if you do any of that, brilliant. Because straight away, you will hit that tee outside. Because you have presented the club further away from you than you started. That's what a shank is. You presented the hosel, or the heel of the club, away from you. So the simplest little drill in the world to get your strike is to stand there and just go through them. So you do that without a ball, then you put a T-peg down with a ball on it and hit balls off the T-peg between them. Then you drop the ball onto the turf and see if you can still hit ball without knocking the two T-pegs. Yeah? So find the one that you struggle with, whether you hit the inside or the outside. You then probably don't need the other one. And just try and avoid the heel and the toe element. Doesn't mean you're going to cure what your problem is, but as I say all the time, at the end of the day, if you can find a solution, I guarantee the chances are it's the right solution. Instead of me saying to somebody, you need to come from the inside, or you need to do something, as long as you get somebody to miss the T-pegs, they found their own way of doing exactly what I want them to do anyway, really. So that's the logic behind it. So if you stand in your back, in fact, Lee and I touched on this the other day, that if you were going to teach anybody to play from the word go, I ideally wouldn't let anybody hit balls for 3 lessons. All I'd do is get them to have 2 T-pegs there, a T-peg in the middle, and a T-peg forward, which is the drill we just did. Can you hit the 2 in the middle, not the outside ones? If you can play golf. Yeah, the ball's going to go a bit right and a bit left, but you can hit a golf ball. It's when you stand there and you're still knocking those ones, now you've got problems. Really is the simplest thing to do in a back garden or a driving range. Just warm up for 5 minutes with T-pegs and nothing else. And when you stood there after 5 minutes and you still can't hit between the 2 T-pegs, with the greatest respect, there's not much point getting a golf ball out, because you're going to hit varied shots. At least your delivery of the club through the ball will be consistent if you can do that. The club face might not, so the ball might go right, might go left when you get the ball, but it should be consistent. Does that all make sense as well? Yeah? I can't think there's another drill for toe and heel, really.
You could use rods. You could, rather than tees, just take that to the channel. The channel. That will give you a good indication. If you're coming across, you're probably going to knock that one that way. If you're coming in, you're going to knock that one that way. The S word, the shank word. Most people tend to think that it's an over-the-top action that happens when you hit the heel. We've found that most people actually come from the inside too much, in to out. If you're coming from in to out too much, you can see that you're presenting the heel to the ball. Whereas if you're coming out to in, you're actually getting the heel to trap away from the ball. But have a test of the rods and see which ones you're scattering which way, and try and miss them like the T-drill, and hopefully you'll find the centre of the face a bit more.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think virtually everybody believes the shank is from the outside, and it almost never is. It almost is. Oh, of course, the other one is, you've heard us rant on about this in the past as well. Shoe spray, that tire and shoe spray, spray it on the face, hit some shots. Where did you strike it? It's feedback, it's immediate feedback, isn't it?
For the ladies, dry shampoo is much nicer.
Men have athlete's foot, women have smelly hair. Is that what we're saying? Okay, that one, to take that on even further, if you can get to the point where, unfortunately I actually scuffed this as a cable, if you can get to the point where you can do the quadrant drill, that is so difficult. Great fun to do, but really difficult. Spray the face, draw a cross on it. Can you get a ball out of the high toe, ball out of low toe, ball out of high heel, ball out of low heel, then hit it out of the middle? The only one I got, you can probably see, oh, I can't know what it is. One in the middle. But if you can do that, remember that learning what's wrong is just as important as learning what's right sometimes. Okay, I can't hit it out the toe. Fine. But it's useful for you to understand what out the toe is, what out the heel is, and it's useful to understand these things in order that when you're on the golf course and you start hitting everything out the heel or toe, you go, oh, I know when I tried to hit it out the toe before, because you're hitting out the heel, I did X. Well, I'll do a bit of that then, because they're quick fixes you can do for yourself when you're out on either the range or on the golf course. But a superb drill, it's really challenging to do that, really challenging. I'll do it.
I think Harry mentioned earlier, it's more noticeable in a driver, but the strike has a massive implication on the shape of the shot that's produced. So if you're heeling it, it tends to cause a bit of a slide or a fade. If you're towing it, it tends to draw the ball or hook the ball more so. So from our point of view, knowing the strike before we can diagnose what's going on, it can be quite misleading. So if we're diagnosing that someone's hooking the ball, we need to know whether they're centering it and it's a closed face, or whether they're hitting it out the toe, because that can start to draw the ball anyway. So yeah, I think trying that drill as well, you'll really sort of
awareness and understanding.
It is, it really is. And I think when I do that, I actually think I'm hitting it out the middle of the club, and I'm actually hitting it probably a groove low as well. So even the best players
To give you an idea, just got some stats. To give you an idea, based on that, you'd only know if you spray the face and you look. Half an inch missing the sweet spot towards the toe, you lose 20% of just under 20% of your distance. Half an inch. So if you think a quarter of an inch, you're losing 10%, which is quite extraordinary. 3/4 of an inch, obviously, and nearly 30%. That's, when you think about it, that's not even half of a golf ball. It's extraordinary what a difference it does make you. So if you can stand there and you can comfortably hit between two tee bags, I would ask you to try that first with your chipping. Because you'd think, yeah, I'll do any chipping. Have a go. If you can hit between the two tee pegs on chipping, the chances are you're not going to be stubbing or duffing your chips. Well, let's be honest, who here, John, doesn't stub or duff any chips? We all do, don't we, yeah? So just doing that, just for a chip shot, we'll come to chipping in a minute, but gives you an idea, doesn't it, on strike? You with us so far?
Yeah. Quick question about the driver setup. Because obviously if you have the ball forward, you're naturally going to exit to the left. So you're going to be on the
up and out, yeah.
up, yeah. Do you aim further right to compensate for that, or do you do something to the club face to compensate for that?
Contentious one, that one. If you ask Matt Kuchar, he'd say aim further right, but it's, you know, a lot of coaches would say yes, you should have what's known as a radiant stance, where you slightly move around depending on where you are hitting at the ball. I'd have to say, unless you are noticing that you're starting to hit this tail leak, then you can tweak it on really. Which does lead me on to actually a different thing, which is actually, I'm going to jump ahead here, but because it's relative to that question. Okay, stats and figures, which are black. I know 250 yards is a lot, but these are stats and figures for research, so bear with me, even though it's a lot more than most people here. But 250 yard driver. People always think, what's the first thing people always think? Oh, I come over the top of it and all these things, yeah? No one really ever concentrates on the club face. Club face, we're not allowed to say club face is king anymore, are we politically correct? But certainly not print, is it? But club face is more important than path. Doesn't matter what your path is doing, your club face is more important. That's really, really important to grasp the concept. So if your if your path is only 1 degree off square, over 250 yards, with your path 1 degree out, the ball will bend 9 yards. If you're 1 degree out with your face, but with a square path, you're 13 yards out. Face has more influence than path ever will. When you start getting down to 4 degrees, well, let's be honest, 4 degrees is not even visible to the human eye. 4 degrees are offline with the path. Over 250 yards would make the ball move 36 yards. Bend 36 yards offline. 53 yards offline with the face. So it just proves that the club face is far, far more important than the path of the golf club. So if you ever get a slightly freaky bend shot, not talking tops or thins, but if you hit a shot where you go, blimey, where's that one come from? The likelihood is it's more down to the face of the club than it is down to the path. So everybody always go, oh, I'm a slicer, I come over the top of it, I need to come from the inside, I want to come from the inside. Which we get as coaches all day long. Check your face first. Because if your face is square, you'll get away with a lot more. If your path is wrong, if your face is wrong, you won't get away with it. If your path is wrong, but your face is good, you'll get away with it. And we will come on to club face in a second. Does that make sense to people though? So when everyone thinks wrong around, they always think path is more important, it's not, it's face. Okay. Okay, so now we've done strike, we've done the quadrants. The next thing is path of the club. We'll come to club face in a minute. Path of the club. So path of the club being, if I'm going down that way, is my club going there, down the line, or there. So if anyone doesn't know, if I'm going that way, in to out is inside the line of the target to outside the line of the target. Out to in is obviously the opposite. Okay, so out to in is what makes the ball, whatever the path is, the ball counter spins to that. So if the path of the club is out to in, so in other words right to left, the ball will go left to right. So it's counter spin. Which is why golf is, people always say, golf's a game of opposites. Because if you think about it, if I do that across something, the ball's going to start spinning this way, which means it bends that way. Does that make sense? So if you start seeing bend on the ball, bend is created, apart from one thing, which is gear effect, which Lee and I touched on, but bend is created through the path relative to the face. And what I mean by that is, if my club face is perfectly square to the target, and my club moves 2 degrees out to in, across, the ball is going to start straight, because the face was pointing there, but the spin will take effect, and halfway through its flight it will start moving a bit. And people will go, oh, I sliced my club face wrong. No, ball started straight, the bend took it away. So whenever you analyse your ball flight, rule of thumb, there's an 87% theory, but rule of thumb, the ball will start where your club face was, period. The ball will bend counter to the direction you swung. Does that make sense? Yeah? So what you've got to ask yourself, when most people say, oh, they come into the studio all the time, oh, I'm hitting terrible slices. I always have to say, when you say slice, what do you mean? They go, oh, ball starts right and goes further right. That's not a slice. A slice starts left and bends right. So if you read our golf articles or magazines or anything, a slice starts left, bends right. So a slice doesn't start right and go right, that's a push slice, which is a totally different thing altogether. So just see if you read magazines and things, just be wary of that. So always remember, club face controls start point, direction and bend is controlled by the path relative to that club face. Is that yeah, logical there? The reason that's really important is virtually nobody hits a straight golf. We all impart some spin on the ball, so it's going to bend. So what you've got to think to yourself, what's the phrase, gentlemen? What you've got to think to yourself, you've got to move your, we call the cone of dispersion. Your ball is going to bend one way or the other. You just got to accept it. Your ball's going to bend. Well, a ball that went there and then went there would be a great golf shot if the ball started there and bent back onto target. What you've got to do is understand your dispersion of that ball and then try and alter it and accommodate it accordingly. All make sense?
You think about, you watch golf on tour, if you think about Bubba Watson when he's playing golf, sometimes that's his target and he's aiming miles over there, or he's aiming miles over there. So he's working the club in a specific way to bend that ball to the target. So he's got good awareness of whether his path's in to out, whether his club face is closed, and he'll act accordingly to get it to finish on target.
I think the thing that's really important as well, recognising there's two factors to a ball bending. One is you've got a swing fault. We all have one, but you've got a swing fault. And the second thing is, can you do anything about it when you're out at a golf course? Probably not. So if you think you've got a shot that's doing that, all we've really got to do is move that, what we call cone of dispersion, the difference between those two. We've got to move that across there. Just accept it for the round of golf. Maybe you need to go on the practice ground or see one of us to change that, cone. As coaches, I say this all the time, my job is not to make you better, my job is to make you hit it badly better, if you get me. If I can reduce your cone so it's a tighter cone, you will be a better golfer. You will all have a cone. So nobody hits it straight. But the reason that's really important to understand that is, if you've got a flag, and the hardest shot to get right is that. Because you're going to get it wrong one way or the other, but you don't know which one. If you're playing for a shape and you start it a bit too far left, it's still working back. If you start it not quite far enough, it's still working quite close. You can always play with bend. It's actually hard to play with straight.
The trouble is, I haven't got a cone, I've got a kite.
But does that make sense about the bend? It's quite, use bend. Just use bend wisely. What you want to do over time is try and reduce that bend, but use bend. It's not a negative if you understand it. Some of you will know that some of the best golfers I've ever come across are old boys who've played golf for years and years and years, been off 2 or 3 in their younger days. They've got a bit older, can't play off that any kind of, they still understand the game. They stand and they do this on every single shot, and you think, oh, they can still play a good game of golf because they understand what they can do and they can't do. It's when you're standing there constantly trying to hit it straight, you're going to fail 98% of the time, except that you're going to hit it with bend. Yeah?
I think it's important to say as well, if this was happening, the scenario we were talking about, the reason why you'd fix the face first rather than the path is because if you start to change the path and the club face fuel path suddenly went out to win and was causing this shape, if fuel path went into out, you'd hit this high block. So this cone would actually go all the from this direction to all the way around here. So if we fix the face to match the path, actually this cone would get smaller and smaller and smaller until you hit a much straighter shot. So instead of it gliding off, you'd have a almost arrow straight shot.
Absolutely valid point. Brilliant point, because if you're having 4 degrees out to win, as an example, 4 degrees out, which we just saw was massive, but you square the club face up to that, the ball's only going to go 4 degrees in theory offline. But if you've got a path that you change but you keep the face the same. So effectively, all you're doing is changing the amount it bends in a different area. Change the face.
So how do you
Always.
change? How?
How do you change face?
Well,
You're going to give him 6.
I need a drink. What I was going to say. That's why we have a studio. Path of go. Now, before we move on to face, which we'll get there in a minute.
well, yeah.
We'll get there. In order to change your path, if you do want to change your path, which Chris has said, always try and do face first. But if you want to change your path, simplest little things. I wish I've got something a little bit higher, but put something down outside the ball, and if you are somebody who comes over the top, you're not going to want to hit that, are you? Force yourself to not hit it. So just by putting something there, and if you start getting really quite comfortable with it, start putting it a bit like that. So now you're going to get this arc coming in here, because you know if you do that, you're going to go clatter, donk, ball's going to go all over the place. Doesn't take long. You know, use a head cover. Simplest little things. Do whatever it takes for you to understand, oh okay, now if I do what I'm going to hit that head cover. Okay, well what do I need to do to not hit that head cover? But don't change your stance. So don't go, oh, in order for me to get it from the inside, I'll just stand over there. It's not really helping you. You stay where you are, try and feel what it's going to do to the swing to change your path.
Another good one, if you're unsure, you could put a ball down just outside the ball, just before the ball. If you miss that ball, you know your path's coming. Put it that side, you know you're coming out to it.
And our range revenue will go up.
I've seen people put their clubs down. I've seen people put their clubs down, and yeah, don't do that.
In a perfect world, in a perfect world, you will get to the point where you start doing that. You can start actually working between, effectively moving your path around however you want to. So you can start tightening up and going that way if you wanted to come more over it. It's just visuals, isn't it? Whatever the visual is to make you go, how do I get between those things? Now initially, we hit balls doing that. Go back to our original stuff. Put a T-peg down. When you change your path, all of a sudden, now I'm hitting the ground back here. So there's no point hitting balls. You may have changed your path, but now you can't hit the golf ball. So it's always whenever you change your path, use T-pegs, they're reference points, first ball, and then build up to hitting shots. Does that make sense? Yeah, all happy with that? Don't get technical about it. If we need to get technical, we'll get technical with you. Come from. Just find a way. It doesn't really matter how.
The nice
Just
thing about
find a
these
way.
drills are, without knowing it, you will be changing technically.
Well, you will know, won't you? That's the thing. You've got reference
Yeah,
points.
but you're not giving you the information. Oh, you've got to do this. You're just finding a way of making that technical change rather than us telling you how to do it.
Lee and I had a conversation only yesterday about the fact that when we're kids, nobody does this anymore. But when you're kids, as juniors, we got playing cross country on the putting green, going around the flower beds, around a tree, back onto the putting green. Yeah, but we also did it around on the green. You'd stand there and go, right, I want to start it under that tree, hook it around the 150-yard sign. That's what we did as kids. No one told us how to do it, but I was like, right, I'm going to hook that. Yeah, I've hooked it around. People don't ever spend enough time just finding their own way. Don't be scared of standing there and think, let's find a way of doing it. You don't have to do it by a textbook. There is no such thing as a textbook. Not one person in this room thinks the same as anyone else. There is no golf swing. There's only physics of the golf club hitting the golf ball. That's all there is. So find a way of doing whatever it takes to get you to do the right thing. All with us so far, yeah? Okay, so the next thing you need is club face. So what we're trying to get is the face as square to its path as you can. The easiest way of doing that is making sure that the club and you aren't opposing each other throughout the swing. So I know you all have this perception because we're all taught this, including us. We taught it all as well, but we now understand it's not kind of that the golf swing used to be what's known as, or we used to believe it was what's known as a release. Yeah, where the toe of the club climbs over, goes from being behind the heel to square to over. That's what everyone thinks generally you're trying to do. Well, logically, if the toe of the club doesn't have to change and it can come through like that, you can have a square club face. You can have a square club. You've got to be unbelievably talented, like Sevi, to be doing all this and timing. So let's cut that out. Let's simplify and cut that out. So if you can get it to the point where the club face doesn't need to rotate anywhere near as much, you should be a better golfer by taking the club face rotation out of it. So, great way of understanding club face and path together. This is a good one, but first of all, club face. The onyx sign with a white sticker on it. If I take to the top of the backswing in an old-fashioned way of doing it, I say old-fashioned, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's hard. This is something to be clarified here. The change in golf coaching over the last 5-7 years that we all tend to do, it's not saying that the old way's wrong, it's just it's a simpler way of doing the same thing for those who don't have hours to practice. So, with the white sticker on the front, the old way of swinging to the top of the backswing, the white sticker was pointing pretty much up to the sky. Yeah, so you can see that's pointing up to the sky. But what you can see by that is I've had to roll that club face to do that. So if I did nothing with my wrist on the way down, where's the club face? It's pointing miles, right? So I'm going to have to do something through impact to square that up. If you can get to the point where the white label points away from you at the top of the backswing, on the way down now, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do a thing. So my chances of missing dispersion-wise have just decreased. I'm going to be a much better misser of the golf ball. That's all it's about at the end of the day. We're all going to miss it, but how good do you miss it? So if you can get the club face so that it's not doing a lot coming into the ball, you can concentrate on the other things. But the reason so many people make the mistakes of things like chicken wings, which we all know happen, chicken wings, which causes tops, which causes thins, causes all these things, is because you get to a point in the downswing when there's not enough time for the body to continue, you have to work the club face and club head to try and square that up. There's nothing more annoying than hit a really nice shot. It just goes straight over there. That's why most people don't slice a ball, which actually starts there and goes there. Most people start it there because the club face is open, and then it goes even further right. We're all scared of them the first tee in the old, I've done to the road. Everyone left. Yeah? So if you can get to the point where, at the top of the backswing, you feel like the back of your left hand is a little bit more away. I'm not saying you've got to go that strong and that extreme. The principle of it is get the back of the left hand, or the palm of the right, whichever way you want to look at it, away from you. Yeah? Now that club face is going to be square. The second part of that, which is huge, is one of the worst things that most people will do is scoop through impact, which loses your power, because we all do this thing called casting and throwing the club at the ball. And that wrist position there, you can see the chances are you're going to do the opposite. That's power. That's squeezing a golf ball. That's scooping a golf ball. There's a huge difference in power between those two. Get it to you getting into the squeezing situation, which is that same wrist position you've got up there. Does that make sense? Yeah? The way of checking that one, easy way of checking it, is get a racket. It's best to have a squash or badminton just because of the size of the grip. Squash, badminton, but leave the cover on. The reason that's important is if you roll the club face incorrectly and you swing down, no resistance. Because that club face is open. As soon as you get it better there, loads of resistance, because obviously now you've got nothing to, there's no air, it's been blocked. Great way of feeling path and face at the same time. So you can imagine even with a good face, if you then did that, there's no resistance. It's resistance we're after on the way down. Does that make sense? It's such a simple drill to get the feeling of, to get the idea of that. Which is why you all now recognise, virtually nobody, if you watch golf on telly, has the club there anymore. They all have it slightly over there. Tommy Fleet is another prime example of doing it. It's very slightly pointing away that way nowadays rather than back over you. Yeah? Happy with that? Yeah? Second and final point on that, on the wrist with regards to that is, we, as coaches, believed the hinge was that. Well, that's as much as I can do, it's hardly anything. Because our wrists aren't designed to do that. Our wrists, to bend, have to change their angle to bend. Because we're not designed to do that. So that is a better wrist hinge than that, which is what everyone was taught for years and years and years and years and years. So if you're going to hinge it so the left wrist goes under, not over. Yeah? Anything else anyone want to add to that?
But you often see videos though, don't you, of people getting that right angle there, and then cocking it like that, not like that.
Yeah, but if I did nothing with my wrist on the way back, how much of a right angle have I got? I've actually got a right angle. I've done nothing with my wrists. What hinges a golf club in the golf swing is the elbow, not the wrist. Wrists don't hinge the golf swing. The right elbow folding creates the element of hinge, not the wrists hinging. Well, how many times do you see somebody get to here and go, well, that's, all you're going to do is cast the club and you've got to carry it. So it's whipping. In order to understand whether or not you've got that correct, one of my favourite drills, grab a stick, grab a cane, garden cane, whatever you like, and do a swing as hard as you can. Do a swing as hard as you can. If you've done it badly, the noises I just did there will be up here and only just get to the ball. If you've done it well, that started there and went all the way through to there. What was that for? Well, yeah, so that's casting. That's whipping.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing in the world to do that. To get, if you want to build your speed up, what a great drill to just understand the speed. You're audibly going to hear it. It starts like that and gradually builds up. And you start thinking, okay, I'm starting to get some whipping to that. It's just an easy, simple way of building your speed up to do that. We slightly digressed from the Clubhouse there, but does that all make sense so far? Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Let me just have a little glass of water. Right, so where are we on to? General swing issues. One thing I wanted to go before I get onto that, I missed out something, which is posture. Over the last few years, through devices and machinery, we now understand that posture coming into impact is so much more relevant than we ever understood it to be. Who was talking about this earlier on? Was that you, Lee? About coming out of posture through impact?
Oh, extension.
Extension?
Yeah.
You did something on it as well, didn't you? Yeah. Do you two want to hop up and do extension through impact?
Yeah.
Yeah, hop up and do something on that.
So one of the, going back to the shank work, we will say it, one of the common faults of shanking is that someone early extends their hips through the ball. So what that looks like, and you'll see lots of demonstrations out on the golf course, is it's a movement towards the ball as they're coming into impact. So if you imagine that you're up against the wall behind you, you would be moving towards the ball, coming off the wall, just like that. I'll put the ball down. And that causes the arms to usually work away from you and causes the heel of the club to hit the ball. So what we're looking for as we're coming into impact is that the hip, actually left hip, clears, works back to allow the right hip to go through. Many people think about driving the right hip. If the left hip hasn't moved, the right hip tends to work towards the ball. So the hips need to work where the left hip is pulled back from the top of the backswing to allow you then to push the right through. And that will give you the feeling of staying on the wall rather than working towards the wall.
And a good way of feeling that in a swing, there are drills, Lee will do a drill in a minute with regards to the way, but if you just set yourself up, good way of feeling that you're doing that in a swing.
Come on, see how fast it is.
Should we just ignore it? Is from the top of the backswing, the idea that you're slamming the left hip back, but the way of thinking about that is to slam into your left heel. Now, if you think back to the old days, the old boys, I'm getting into the habit now. I think it's a bit. I don't mind if somebody does that, because actually, as a trigger to start the downswing, that's a great trigger move to start the downswing, because what you're doing is immediately put the emphasis on that way. So slamming your heel down. Now, if you don't lift your heel up when you're swinging, in your shoe, plant your heel. Just feel like you just plant your heel down. So immediately your left hip is going to go backwards. I think it's really, really important to understand the right side does not hit the golf ball. The right side is the catch-up to the left side speed. And what I mean by that is, the start of the downswing, as Lee said, if you can get the sensation that your left side pulls away from it, so if Lee is my left side is going to pull away from Lee, creating more room. Now, my right side can fire through centrifugal force. The right side at no point actually goes outwards at all. But as Lee perfectly said, you can't get that happening if you haven't created extra room this way. So through impact, the old adage of hit down, the old adage of keep your head down, all things that make it impossible to do that. For you to hit a golf shot correctly through impact, you have to have the sensation you're actually slightly pulling backwards away from the golf ball. You're moving away from the golf ball, as opposed to what Lee said, most amateurs tend to move towards, because most people think, oh, right arm, because you're right-handed, to golf ball. So you're going to move nearer to it. Well, actually, it's left arm away. The right arm never actually, at any point, really separates from the body at all.
As a reference, just watch the pressure on Harry's foot when he does that as he's coming through. So you can see that the toes are almost curling
Toes
back.
are off the ground.
So when he's doing it correctly.
And my little bucket drill.
Yeah.
A way of checking that put your right foot in a bucket. If you come out of posture, which is what Lee was talking about, you'll feel yourself hit the bucket. If you're doing it correctly, your right foot will tuck and turn in, and at no point go outside the bucket. You're trying to tuck in, so this knee slams against this one almost, as opposed to that way, which you can understand presents the club in a terrible way out towards the ball.
And I think it's important to say here as well, if you're only extending the upper body is unable to rotate as well, so a lot of people get a chicken wing.
That's where the chicken wing happens.
Yeah.
Chicken wing only happens if you're a chicken winger. There's only one cause of it. There's multiple causes of it, but the only reason that chicken wing happens is the body has stopped moving, the club hasn't. So you get a chicken wing. There might be multiple factors that cause that, but that's the reality of it. If I was to imagine throwing this stick down the range, I wouldn't throw it like that. I'd do that, but I'm now moving that way, which gives me room to now throw that stick down the range. But also when I throw that, I'm not going to throw it with the tucked arm, I'm going to try and extend my arms to do that.
How many of you do an extra step forward once you've hit the ball? So if I'm hitting that way, so you hit the shot and you're falling towards the ball. How many of you do that?
So where's your weight gone? It's gone onto your toes, not your heel.
So another thing you can do for that as well is get an old tennis ball out of the garden, cut it in half, and when you set up, put it in your left heel. So as you're moving through, you can feel that stomp,
Pressure down here,
squishing down, and then get right through it.
Yeah, this is what these pads are for actually. So if I was to stand on here, stand on these, make a golf swing, I'm typically just going to go to the front here.
So what should you do on that?
Yeah. So I could just stand on the back of them, and there's no way I can push any more air into these, so I'm forced to stay back and rotate through that way. Yeah.
Brilliant.
We can do that. You can do that actually without these. You can just go with the toes.
You can't do that on a golf course.
Yeah.
On a golf course, you can
within
your
your
shoes.
There's no way you can go onto your toes because they're not there.
Turn your toes up to the sky.
You've got a wedge behind your wedge here. Behind your heels.
That's great.
If I go, that's just going to lose pressure and just dangle off the back. If I maintain that pressure on there, it's going to stay nice and upright.
But that all comes back to that again, isn't it? Which is, you're not trying to go that way, which means you've got to do this. You're trying to maintain all the time. So it all comes back to the same thing, which is maintaining arcs and radius. Okay, in order to now understand
Harry,
yeah.
Question. To achieve the weight transfer to the left side, should you be pushing off on your right foot or not?
Now we can get into some serious stuff there. Yes, you do need to transfer weight to the left side. It's not as dominant as everyone used to talk about, but it's yes, you do want to get your weight to your left side, but don't think of it as left side, left heel.
Yeah.
Really important. And yes, we're getting into a thing called ground pressures here. But yes, you do want to get to a point where you can drive up. But the reality of that is it actually tends to come from the starting of this move, then you drive off. That's quite a technical way of getting down the line on it. But yeah, you do want to be driving off the right foot if you can. But that's why it's important. You're not driving that way. There's no energy's going. You're driving that way. And the only way that can happen is if you're rotating.
So ideally you want left heel, left hip clearing, but also a bit of pressure on your right foot to...
Well, as Lee said, really, ideally what it is initially you're doing this,
Yes.
to then do that. Yeah. But all I'd say about that is in an ideal world. Try and do that and you'll get in all sorts of muddle, I think. But that's an ideal world, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In order to understand this clearing, one of the simple drills in order to understand clearing, if you put a stick up against in patio slabs or up against a wall or whatever you like, standing about a foot away from the wall or the slab or whatever it is, put a stick into the groove, into the wall or whatever it is, and now make a swing. If you use your right side, you'll get to a point you go, oh, I can't get any further. If you use your left side, you can clear. So your left side is creating space for your right to be able to then... But you can see by my foot again actually, just doing that. Look where my weight's gone, it's gone to my left heel. Left hip's gone backwards. The second you only do it with your arms, or you do it with your right side, you'll get to a point, well, where do I go from here? Well, that's where you go. And that's where the chicken wing comes in. Such a simple drill for $14.99 in multiple colours in the shop. Such a simple drill though, to just understand that feeling. Final one on this, because they're all the same related thing. Speed also comes from the left side. And the reason I'd say that is if you remember that drill when I did this, if you were to do it with just your left hand only, most people will do that. They won't finish, the whoosh is over there, and you've got no oomph on it. Because you swung your left arm. If you do one arm drill, whether it be with a club or a stick, but swing your rib cage to pull your arm, now you're going to go through. Your rib cages are going left, your hips are going left, which gives you all the room. Well, that speed, that I can't do anything because I'm in my own way. So that's why the left side has to clear in order to get the path correct, in order to do it. But remember, all of that comes down to, even if your path is brilliant, but you're stuck on the ball because you haven't cleared, your club face will change. So all the work we've done on making sure that club face is good, waste of time. Yeah? Okay, anything else for postulate?
No, I'm just adding to, if you think of any other throwing actions, any other throwing sports, javelin, shot put, any
clearing out the way to
throw extend. Yeah, I mean that's exactly, golf is a throwing
You never see somebody throwing that way. They're always going to go that way to throw. One final one I haven't done. Wait, can you stand? In fact, Joe, can you stand for your tour?
Hey.
This drill can only be done. In fact, sorry, I won't do it. I'm going to do it against the wall, but if you can all watch what I'm doing against the wall. You can only do this drill with a pitching wedge. It's the only club you can do this with because of the length of it. So place a club on your shoulders, crossing your arms right at the top. Take your posture against the wall, put your head against the wall. A correct goal swing, you won't hit the wall this way, and you'll pull off the wall that way. When I mean pull off the wall, you won't just get to impact and then pull. You will start dancing by pulling slightly away from the wall in order to not hit the wall. 95% of golfers we teach might get that right, but they'll go ka-thunk way down, because the right shoulder goes that way as opposed to the left shoulder going that way. Now consider we've got a brick shed out on the driving range, 2 seconds of doing that before you start swinging, you start thinking, oh okay, there's the thing. Really easy drill to get that sensation. Okay, so putting. I'll use a little phrase I love, which is left is the face, right is the pace. Your club face is controlled by your left hand. hand, the power source in effect is controlled by your right hand. If you are a right-hand putter, which most right-handers are, you now got a problem because you're trying to control two things with the same thing. So that's when you get into a bit of a muddle. So if you sit up to it and you're a right-hander, so you take it away with the right hand and use the right hand to putt, you've got to be good. You better be good at timing that club face rotation. So there's two ways of looking at putting. First and foremost, well, three ways. First and foremost is can you strike it? 2 tee pegs on the ground again. Can you get the 2 club going between 2 tee pegs? Yes, good, I can strike it. Second thing is club face rotation, which is left hand. So if you can get to a point where you hit putts with just your left hand, and you can hit them pretty straight, you've got control of that. Thank you. It's like a nice putt, isn't it? Except for it didn't make that noise when it came back. So that's your way of learning club face. You then add your right for pace, as in the feel. So your feel comes from your right hand. That's what you throw a ball with. So your feel comes from the right hand. So once you've learned the club face, I tend to say to people, start taking part of your left hand off. So all you do is lock in the left wrist. Now feel it with the right hand. So you've learned to control that. Once you've learned that, now start feeling it with the tips of the fingers of the right hand to start going, okay, there's my pace and that's my power source and what you're trying to do. Now remember with putting, you aren't trying to get the ball to come off the club face. You almost want to feel like the ball is stuck to the club face. So when you go through a putt, you want to feel like you're pushing it towards the hole. We don't want the ball going boom, off the face. Good putters, if you ever play with a good putters look like their ball will never reach the hole and it just keeps going. Bad putters look like the ball's going miles and never reaches the hole. Because the ball jumps off the face, hops, skips, bounces and doesn't roll. Good putters just push it towards the hole and the ball starts rolling out. So left is the face, right is the pace. Make sense? Yeah? Now if you can't control the face, simple thing to do is check whether or not you're rotating the face or you are. So if you're not turning left and the putter face is turning left, you've rolled this face, the face with your hand. If the ball is going left, but when you look down, you go, well actually that's still the same relationship to me as I started. But hold on, I'm pointing there now and I should be still pointing down there. So you've got to find out which one is causing the ball to go offline. Is it you or is it your wrists, the club face rotation? So if you can get to the point where you can control that face, and I know what you boys do, but my favourite thing is something you'll have seen what a lot of the tour pros do. I'm a great believer in clamping the top of my arm against my chest. I don't think there's been a good putter, other than Nicholas, who did that. I don't think there's been a good putter, you will see daylight under their armpits. Look at any putter on tour, from their elbow up, you don't see daylight, because they're connected. So basically now, my rib cage moves my arms. My arms don't move, my rib cage moves my arms. Well, now if I've learned to keep this square so I'm not doing this as well, the only thing I can really get wrong is pace. Make sense?
Does anyone notice Justin Rose when he's putting, just before he puts, he tucks his shirt underneath his arm? So that's him getting connected on the left side. Good thing to try.
Great thing to try and chipping as well.
Yeah.
Oh, you do it with his left side?
I have to say, I always used to do that. I always used to touch them. Okay. Left side is more important than right side. Okay. Problem with the right side one, and people do it, problem with the right side one, does have a tendency to make people do that when they take the putter away. Yeah. Whilst this is just tracked against the side. So that's basic ways of getting the basic strike and basic direction. With regards to getting your distance control on putts, to get your pace on putts, easy things to do, simplest thing you can do is download a metronome on your phone. I've got one, I've used it for a while now. I used to use it, my ex-wife was a concert pianist and we had an old walnut one, which is a proper one. I spent hours putting with that. I forgot all about it until about a year ago. I thought, I haven't done that. So I set my cadence about 55, which I have to say is a bit slow actually, but most people are about 70. But So you think that it's tick, tock, tick, tock. Now you've got to remember, that's the same. You're laughing at that, aren't you?
Think of the crocodile off of there.
This is why I have to work with.
It's getting annoying now.
Me or it. Okay, so once you've got a cadence, you've got to remember a couple of things. That cadence in theory is the same whether you're going over 6 foot or 20 foot. The length of the swing changes to hit that cadence. Don't ever hit a putt harder or softer by trying to putt. By definition, by physics, if my swing speed is speeding, my length of stroke is longer, it's going to speed up. But you're still working on tick, tock. Whether it's tick, tock, or tick, tock. You're trying to hit that rhythm all the time. So the longer the putt gets, the longer the stroke gets. You don't stand there and have the same length stroke and then hit it harder for a long putt or hit it softer for a short putt. If you're downhill or uphill, never on downhill or uphill putts hit it harder because it's uphill. That's madness. Add the uphill, imagine the hole being further away and now do a normal stroke. Otherwise you're not making a normal stroke. So just imagine that the putt might be 3 inches from the left edge and 2 foot longer, so you picture something would be on the hole and then just make a stroke for that. Never hit it harder to that hole. Yeah? So you're getting a cadence. Now one of the things that's the problem with putting, and one of the best ways you'll ever know putting, most people don't realise that they don't hit a putter out of the middle of the face. Virtually everybody thins a putt. Virtually everybody thins a putt. It's only when you play with a good putter that once in a while you hear a noise, you go, that's strange. A really hollow noise, that's a properly hit putt. And the reason everyone thins a putt, twofold. One, for years everyone was told hit up on a putt to get it to roll. Load of rubbish. Physics has proven that's an absolute load of drivel. You actually hit it right at the bottom of the arc for a neutral strike. Don't hit it on the arc. Load of rubbish. That's the first. The second thing is, virtually everybody has a little sneaky peek. And as soon as you have a sneaky peek in putting, you tend to go that way. So where's the putter going? That way. And left. So most people, when they hit through putts, tend to get that horrible noise, which is a thin. That's what the thin is. So one of the best ways you can get out of that, simplest little thing, is the 4 beat rule. 1 is the backstroke, 2 is impact, 3 is you finish your stroke, stand down, and only on 4 do you turn and look. So you go 1, 2, 3. Simplest thing, you call out in your head. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's only when you actually have to call out in your head number 3, you're going to keep your head down. So, guaranteed when you first do it, you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you, Jan. Okay, so simple little thing, but if you hear the correct part, this is testing me now. If you hear the correct noise of a part, can you hear the difference of that noise? Totally different noise. That's hit out the middle of the putter.
Stop that.
Exactly. So that's the simplest thing. The stiller you stay, because you've got. I heard that. The difference is all other shots in the game of golf, you have momentum because you need to have momentum because there's a downward or an upward blow, driver or iron. Putting, you don't need momentum. So stay still and just move the rib cage. Yeah? Happy with that?
I think one drill that you can do with that, because lots of times, certainly as coaches, what we notice is you analyse a fault, you explain what's going on, you show them to do it different, they hit another shot and go, did I do it? Because you never really know what's going on through impact or through tactile. If you get some blue tack or whatever, pop on the putter and leave that gap in the middle.
So you put a bit there.
And then have a couple of putts and you'll be surprised how hard it is to hit that centre of the face, and you'll realise that, gosh, I'm really missing it by a lot. And obviously that's affecting your distance control. And if you're going out there and you've got 1 putt downhill and it's 30 foot, and then on the next hole you've got a 10 foot uphill putt, you're never having that consistency on the round. So it's really, that's why putting is.
Also, no one thinks about it. We all know by default, hit that the heel with the driver or the iron. Oh, I didn't hit that very well. No one ever thinks about that with putting. It's actually true, but what also Joe didn't mention there, but on that, if you hit it slightly out the heel or the toe, where's the face going to go? which is why modern day putters are the ones with the big backs and they're square. That's what it's about. The big backs and the square things, these big things called mallets, is so that when you hit them at the toe of the heel, they don't twist. That's what it's about. So you get away with more. When you've got what's called a blade putter like this, and you hit that just fractionally at the toe, or fractionally at the heel, that ball's going left or right.
Another good one for strike is to put a couple of elastic bands
Yeah.
inside of the sweet spot. You can start quite wide and just gradually work it in. Yeah.
Absolutely. So strike on putts is far bigger than most people will ever give it credit for. But because most people do, unfortunately, do an element of that. So we've done basically a tempo we've done, so I think that pretty much covers most drills. Obviously from a drills perspective of putting, in order for you to get distance control, you need to learn how to control distance. You cannot set a length on a stroke. What I mean by that is, the green today will be different than the green tomorrow. So don't ever think, well, if I go to there and go through to there, I'm going to hit 8 foot. It's not going to happen. It won't happen. This carpet's a different pace to the carpet at home. So, you know, the reality is you're never going to be on the same thing twice. But what you can do is judge pace through stroke. So what you should do is a ladder drill. So if you think in terms of a ladder drill being the simplest little thing, you hit a little putt, it goes that far, and you think to yourself, okay, my next putt, I want to hit a foot further. Or about 3/4 of a foot further, I'd say. But you can imagine what I mean. You're just gradually moving down the line, and down the line, and down the line, down the line, and realising, okay, I'm okay till about here on a putting stroke, and then I lose control. Why? The chances are you're probably decelerating or accelerating quicker than your tempo should be. So hit a putt to there, then hit a putt to there, then hit a putt to there, then hit a putt to there. Then mix it up, getting excited here. Go to there, then back to there, then into here. Just play around with it. You can do that on the carpet at home. It's not about the length, it's about the fact that you can alter the length, irrelevant of the green surface or whatever. Can you alter the length with the same feeling of pushing, not hitting, or slowing down? The worst thing you'll ever see, I hate it when I watch somebody putting on a really quick green. What they always do is because they're still thinking of backswing length relative to the hole, but now it's a quicker green, so they've got to hit it soft. No, just swing it shorter and hit a normal putt. Yeah?
When you're practicing with your 55 metronome, what's your arc?
Ooh, great question. Well, I'm a strong arc. Any of you straight arc?
Straight.
I mean,
there's no right or wrong.
No, is it just, yeah.
There's no right or right. There are.
Your speed, so your people's speed will vary.
And height, your height
Yes.
that you are as a person,
Okay.
and the length of your putter, and the style of your putter will alter the arc of your stroke.
Yeah.
So I could give you a different putter than yours, it would change your arc. Because of the way the putter's weighted and balanced. But, little thing, if you are somebody who, I'm a very strong arc, I'm the severe arc. There's no right or wrong, but I'm a strong arc, which...
What do you mean by that?
Strong arc basically means that the putter moves very much around me. Straight arc, pardon the phrase, straight arc is straight back and straight through. Slight arc, which I think, slight arc is probably the most common, which is just a gentle arcing. I've always been, for some reason I've been a strong arc, I really struggle not to. But one of the ways you can always do something on that is to, it's difficult with this putter because I've got a flange at the back of it, but is to make a stroke with a ball touching the back of the putter and see where the ball goes. If you whip it on the inside, the ball's going to go to the right. If you whip it on the out, take it on the outside, the ball's going to go to the... You know, just simple little things like that to do it. It's actually easy with a flange on it to do it with a stick. Generally with a stick it will go the opposite way. So if I whip it on the inside, you can see the stick now spins that way. But I'll always come back to with putting, the physics of a putter is, do what you like, that ball will still go straight if the club face is correct. Hit it where you like, it really doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter. As long as your club face is correct. I can do whatever I like. That ball's going to go straight if my club face is square. Yeah? But the second my club face is not square, that ball's going to offline. So once again it comes back to we started with, club face is king. Club face is king. Which then comes all the way back again to what controls club face?
Left arm.
So if you can't hit putts straight, practice with your left hand. You're getting bored of this, aren't you? I'll stop putting then. So you can see, you can always bring things back to simplicity. You don't have to get too technical about things, just think, I can't control where the ball's going. Let's work on club face, let's work on my left hand, etc. Yeah? Happy with that? Yeah. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay. Okay, so chipping. Okay, chipping.
No, sir. That would
Okay, chipping wise. Well, first thing about chips, what's the most disastrous shot you can do in, disastrous shot you can do in a chip? Fat it or thin it, which we now know is the same thing. So you can see the patterns here. So we know how to put T-pegs down, we know to do all of that, to try and get the strike in the right place. The only difference is because it's not as powerful a shot, the distance between the two T-pegs when you're going forwards needs to be a little bit closer, because obviously you've not got as much energy, so it's not going to be an 8-inch divot, it's only going to be a very short divot, so it doesn't need to be quite so hard. I use the word divot, which is probably incorrect, because when you're thinking in terms of chipping and pitching, we're not trying to take a divot, trying to bruise the grass. Hit the ground as hard as you like, but don't front end. My coffee granules out. Okay, so.
Here's the coffee.
Here's the coffee. Excuse me. Okay, think in terms of, that's your club face. So you can imagine if you present the front edge of the club, it's going to go straight in and dig. If you present the sole of the club, it's going to slide. That's what's the difference between using bounce, which is that roundness on the bottom, brought this one to exaggerate it, but a wedge has roundness. So the front edge of a wedge is actually above the bottom of the club. In your pocket. So you can see the front edge of the wedge is above the bottom of the club. So you can now see why I use that, because the reality is if you can get it so the bottom of the club hits the ground, you'll never duff a shot. You might not hit them brilliantly, but you'll get away with murder. The second that front edge is effectively going into the ground, there's only one thing going to happen. That's like a knife. That thing is going to go down into the turf. So what do we all do after we've done 3 of those? Out there. So the simple way of thinking about this, once again, others who can practice for hours will disagree, but reality is to make it simple, try not to get the leading edge of the club ever pointing down. So as soon as you hinge when you're chipping or pitching, where's the leading edge gone? Straight down. You've now got to find some way of not doing when it comes to scoop. If you can get more of a sensation that you keep the bottom of the club always looking at the ground, then you're always going to be able to hit that mat. You can hit, it's not digging at all, even though I hit the mat quite hard there, there's nothing to dig. So that's why, when it comes to short game, I'd say a great way of practicing is to try and hit the turf. In time I'd say hit down, but try and hit the turf without being able to break the surface. If you can do that, so you basically, I could stand there for an hour chipping and I wouldn't take a divot. I'd bruise the turf and after a while you'd see it discolouring, but all I'm doing is bruising the turf all the time. So I'm hitting it with that part of the club, not that part of the club. Okay, and that all comes from putting in wrist hinge and independent hands. That comes back full circle to slightly cuddling up here, rib cage. Cuddle, rotate. My arms at no point are independent to my chest. As soon as your arms are independent, you're going to get all sorts going on in the club. I appreciate there are great players out there who don't do that. They can practice for a lot longer than you lot can, so why not simplify it and make that the simplest way of of doing it.
When you do this technique, it's quite amazing the dispersion. If you hit a bad one when your leading edge is going into the ground, it's probably going to go about a yard. If you do a bad one when you're using a bounce, it's still going to go about 6 foot away from the hole.
I actually demonstrate that in those who've had short game lessons, Angela, where I'll actually purposely hit it 8-10 inches behind the ball and still get a perfect shot out. Because the club just slides. So it's still going to present loft, it's still going to go near. Might hit it perfectly, but you'll get a good shot out. So, the only difference between short game, which is effectively what we're doing here, other than not hinging the wrist at all, is the fact that in all the other parts of the game, we have forward momentum to compress and squeeze the ball. That's the bang move there that squeezes and compresses the ball. We don't want, I wish it wasn't called short game, I wish it was called finesse game. We don't want power in the finesse game. Otherwise we'd be doing full swing. We're only doing short shots. So we want to be able to hit the ball as hard as we can, but with the ball coming off as softly as we can. Once again, a bit like pushing it, not hitting at it. But you have to have a descending blow, not hitting down, but the club is descending to get under the ball. So because we haven't got the momentum we have in the full swing, you have to create it. So that's what's known as posting up. So when you play a short game shot, as soon as you aren't doing a full swing, you have to put your preemptive impact position. In a full shot, we're all trying to get virtually all our weight onto this leg at impact, rather than staying back and anything. So what you've got to do in short game is preempt that by posting up onto that left leg. So you're already hitting down on it. Because obviously doing that means I'm now hitting slightly the downward blow, if you get what I mean. Does that make sense? Important thing, really, really important thing. Don't make the cardinal sin of pushing your hips forward. Because if you watch, if I push my hips forward, what's happened to me? I am now leaning backwards. Just defeated the object, now I'm going to hit back there. It's really important when you post up, which is the opposite of a driver, where I said don't move, on chipping, post up. You're actually putting, a bit like Joe's tennis ball theory, you're actually putting pressure into the ground on your left heel. That's important to remember. It's not left foot, it's left heel. So what do we do on any impact? Turn into our left heel to create room. So post into your left heel at address. The difference with this, the reason it's called a post, is you don't move from it. You stay on it the whole time. All you're doing is rib caging back, rib caging through.
So you put your ball a lot further forward than traditionally the sort of hands forward, ball back stuff.
Yeah, the simple reason for that is what we talked about right at the beginning, which is as soon as you do the old school method, which there's some great players who do it, as soon as you do the old school method, what have I done with the leading edge immediately? I've presented it forward. So you've got to be really good to do that. I did it when I was a junior, couldn't do it for the love of the money now. So don't practice enough. And John, before you say anything, I know I can chip.
Sorry, a good way to practice what Harry was talking about on the posting up, if you practice off down slopes, what you'll see is, if I'm on what's severe down slope, you can see that my shoulders are angled down with the angle of the slope. If I was to be, broken, I'll pay for that. I'll pay for that. If I was more this way relative to the slope, then I'm going to come in early and hit behind the ball. So if you practice getting a good strike off a down slope, you'll have to automatically be this way to make sure that club's travelling down with the slope, rather than if you're this way, that club's going to hit the down slope first, and then the club's coming down. So if you can get good strikes off a down slope, that would help you to get the sensation.
Just taking that on slightly is a brilliant point. When people start thinking in terms of what's more important, Nick Trevino used to stand there like that. Tiger Woods, when he first came on the scene, stood like that. And Matt Kuchar stands like that. Your feet mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. However, your forearms, as soon as your forearms are pointing in one direction or the other, now you've got problems. So when it comes to what your feet do, doesn't. Oh yeah, I was aiming right. That doesn't make any difference. It really doesn't. What matters is where my forearms, when I'm setting up to it, square. Because if you tend to do what most people do when they post up, most people tend to twist into their post. Now where are my forearms? Now where am I going to hit the ground? Precisely. So it's really important whenever you do driver, whether you do anything, never care about your feet. Do care about where are my shoulders, forearms pointing. Because that's what hits, that's the bit that delivers the club, isn't it? So your feet don't matter. Slight tangent I went on there, but I think it's really important to. Sorry, is that what subject are we on at the minute?
In chipping, is it advisable to have a slightly narrower stance in chipping?
Nah.
No.
I think the opposite. I love a wide stance of chipping. Because my personal belief is that the chipping action is top half. You've preset your lower half, and you want your top half to really work around that. That's the rotation. That's really difficult when you find the old school people who do that. Well, if I rotate now, I'm in trouble. So I'm a great believer in wide. You have never seen a good bunker player in the history of the game who's got a narrow stance. Good bunker players, your Gary players, your Faldos, because Faldo was the best bunker player ever, I think, no one ever rated him for it. Always sit wide. Because that now means their top half can do all the work, because the lower half is really set. But it gives them a base to work their top half around. So I believe if you've got a little bit the old style narrow stance, you're going to tend to be a little bit hands and armsy because you can't rotate the chest through. So stand normal width, I'd say. Stand normal width. But always just check your thighs. So when you've done the posting up, just check your thighs. You'll tend to be given away. If your thighs have gone that way when you twist, your chest has probably gone that way, even though your feet were perfect. Yeah, so it's all about that rotation. Same thing we talked about with putting, which is trapping the left arm and rotating. One little guide I'd give you, try and keep the relationship between the butt of the club and the head of the club constant to the end. What I mean by that is, we don't want you to start holding the face, because that relationship has changed relative to me. We don't want you flipping the face, because that relationship has changed. So to get the idea of where you want it to be, don't make a backswing, turn your rib cage through, which is what we're saying. My handle of my club is going left. My club head is going left, but my club head isn't going more left than my handle. Does that make sense? What we certainly don't want is the chaser. That's a nightmare, because now your radius has changed, which means your strike's changed. There's a good chance you're going to do the old shank because you're presenting the club further away than you. Yeah, so it's that idea of this always stays constant, and you can see that's not going straight at all. That club is not going straight. Don't be folding thinking you've got to go through straight, because to go through straight I have to change my radius. It's an arc. Yeah?
A good reference when Harry does that is watch out between the relationship of the grip end and his left hip. So when he goes to, yeah, just like that. So they stay in line.
They're linked.
Circling around.
It's not going in anywhere. They're always linked. So when this moves, the whole golf swing is a radius and a rotation around a fixed point, effectively. That's why never ever chase the club head down the line. So it changes that relationship.
At one point in chipping you talked about having the hands a little bit higher.
Yeah, I'm an advocate of that, I have to say, because most people tend to get a bit flicky, so I'm a great believer that when you're over a chip, just the idea that you raise your left wrist up so it's slightly bowed over, just locks that wrist, so it helps you use the bounce on the club. So just getting that idea that you're just doing that slightly. The lower your hands, like a sevi, the more you're going to use your hands through the impact area. Just raising that left wrist up. Same with putting. In fact, on the putting one, best way of making sure you've got a good grip when you putt, put the club up your forearm of your left arm, slide the putter down until it's in your grip, close your hand around. That is nothing like a normal grip. You can even see there, half of this part of the hand's not even on the club. So that now means when I put it down, I've formed a straight line. As soon as you grip it like a golf shot, which is in that part of the hand, which is what you do on a full swing, where you can see the huge differential between the angle of the shaft and the button, which now means you're all automatically creating a bit of this. So the idea, which is why you may have seen quite a few guys now using these up the arm putter grips, because it just keeps that relationship the same. So if ever you want to practice that, I think you've got a short one, I think. You can always use a stick. And put it up before on.
Or a 5 or 3 would.
Yeah, 5 and 3 and putt with that, yeah. But you can see that stick's not visible. As soon as I drop my hands down, the stick's visible. And we're just going to do a little bit of that.
The interesting thing about the handle position as well, if you think about where the loft of the club face is pointing, so if I was to lower the handle, I'm not twisting the face there, but you can see the loft starts to point a long way to the left. If I raise it up, obviously if I raise it too much then it's going right, but it's very difficult to hit a shot from over there. But it just means if you're dropping your hands a lot, the loft is already pointing left. And because you're usually using a sand wedge or something like that, the more loft there is, the more effect that has. So on a putter there's minimal effect, but there is still effect there. But with the sand wedge, there's quite a lot of effect there. You can see if I'm aiming straight ahead there, if I drop my hands down to there, that ball's going over there if I present it in that same way. So it does have a big implication on where the ball can go.
Yeah. Any questions on chipping or putting? I'll take that as a no. Well, I think in that case, unless there's anything you guys want to add, is there any questions anyone's got with regards to anything in particular to yourselves that you'd like a drill for, that you struggle with and you want to drill? Otherwise, I think unless you guys have got something we can wrap that up. Anyone got any questions on anything? Anyone know that you've got a particular fault, and is there something to cure that particular fault? We do need to get going in about.
Well, coming back to the point that Lee was just making, I pull my wedges from 120 to 70 yards. I'm always pulling them left.
Yeah.
According to what Lee just said, my hands may be actually in a position which actually.
Well, you fitted for your clubs.
Because all your clubs are wrong.
Yeah. But I was fitted
here.
So yes. I was correctly fitted here.
If you're fitted here, they're perfect.
Yeah. But this problem of pulling my wedges.
The likelihood of that is if it's not down to the angle of the shaft, as in upright or flat, and the clubs are set up correctly for you, the likelihood of that is because it's not a full power swing, your body is slowing down and the arms are overtaken. And because there's more loft makes the ball go left when you cut across it, out to in. Less loft makes the ball bend right. Is the way it works, which is why people pull short irons and slice long woods and long irons. So what tends to happen when people haven't got a full shot is they tend to do the same length swing and hit it softer. Well, when you hit it softer, no one slows their arms down. Everyone slows their body down. So what people do is they go, ooh. And now the arms are outrunning the body, chicken wing and shoes, you can easily pull short irons. If you did the same with a long iron, which is why most people when they punch a ball, cut it. Because most people when they punch a ball, try and stop it, and actually what they do is they stop their body. So they leave it right and they can't get it back on target. No matter what length of swing, always make sure the chest is moving quicker than the club head. Otherwise, club head's going to overtake him. So that's probably the likely cause. And normally the likely cause is most people swing too far because they try and do it like I said with the putt. Normal length backswing, then try and hit it softer. Never do that. Whatever length of shot you're hitting, hit it with conviction with your body. Just make the backswing only long enough that with conviction it can't go too far. So you always outrun the club with this rotation of the left side pulling this way. If you do that, the club face won't overtake you. But if you stop, club face is gone. It's inevitable. And that's why people pull short irons, slice long irons.
Thank you.
That's generally what it tends to be. You were going to say, David?
Yeah, I find that when I'm driving, I really need to make sure my hands don't go too low.
Yeah.
I have to keep my habit, otherwise it can go anywhere.
Very true, because then it becomes handsy, which is what we're sort of talking about. So a general rule of thumb of that is, I don't believe there's a shot in golf where the butt of the club should be below the belt buckle. Every single shot you play in a game of golf, the butt of the club should point above your belt buckle. No matter what length of shaft you've got, that club will point above your belt buckle. As soon as the club goes underneath your belt buckle, you're now going to have to do something with your hands, because I promise you something, if you are going to think about impact and power. Let's be honest, impact is an element of power. If I was to put this club up against something that's going to resist, and I tried to push that from down there, I've not got much power. It's instinctive to do that to create power. Raise that wrist up. It's an instinctive thing to do. Everybody does it. If they want to create power, you're going to do that because that's a stronger wrist position than that. So if you start here, you're not going to return there. So you're going to return up here. Well, now you've got to control that club face because as Lee said, as soon as you do that, now the club face is changing. So it's much better for most amateurs to be a bit too wooden in the setup here than relaxed in that sense. Because at least that you've got a chance of returning to. Here, you've got a time where you return.
Well, when I play my 6-iron, I've got my hand hanging differently.
Because the club is not so far away, the shaft is automatically more vertical. So if I do sand iron to the driver, shaft angle on that is quite steep. Shaft angle on that is quite shallow. So it's more. It tends to push people this way, whilst when you've got a wedge closer to you, it tends to push you up more this way. So 6-irons obviously are up more than this. You've still got to be strong in your wrist position. Because the irony is of that, if you had an ideal world, you'd have a stronger wrist position on the driver because it's more powerful than you would.
Yeah.
But the way the clubs are, it does the other way around. Does that make sense? Right, yeah. Anything else, anyone? Yeah, go on, Ross.
So I think one of the most difficult chips are the ones that are just off the green, where you've only just got to do it. I don't know, get the control.
I would say most people find that such a difficult chip.
Yeah.
Yet, as soon as you give them 50 yards, they seem to be okay. And the reason being, when you have to generate momentum, you will instinctively start putting some body in. When you've only got to hit it from me to there, it's almost inevitable you're going to go up. That'll do.
Yeah.
It's the same with short cutting.
It's exactly the same. You just waft at it. Well, the reality is, connect, rib cage it. Doesn't matter what length the shot is, whether you're doing it over a foot, 5 foot, 30 foot. Once you're into that position, rib cage it. Use your rib cage to create action. That club head never travels on its own accord. But because they're short shots, most people just tend to do that, which is just a waft at it. But as soon as it's 40 yards, we all go, well, that isn't going to be enough. I better make a swing at it. So people find full swings easier than they do in that route. So you're not alone. That is a very common thing. Anyone else? Good? Okay, well, what I would say is hopefully you've gained some things from that. Hopefully you've got some ideas. No problem at all. Thank you very much for coming. And as you probably are, do we know the date then? I can't remember.
No.
It's in January. We've got another one in January, and then another one in March after that. So spread the word. Spread the word.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we've heard in the last couple of hours cost me 600 quid. I've now just got round to starting to hit some balls. When I was in charge of the junior organiser, whatever, and I'm a lot older than I look. And people have asked me in the past, many times, about kids and what golf clubs they should buy. Should they buy half a set, second-hand set, da. I always say, rightly or wrongly, for the professional staff here, forget the clubs, get anything, get them out of a loft, get them from a second-hand shop, whatever. You cannot spend enough money initially with kids than coaching them. Now, everybody needs to be taught how to do stuff, and you learn all the way through life. And I'm just clipping 60 now, and I'm actually starting to taking some lessons seriously for the first time in my life. And we can't have a better set of coaching staff than we've got. And 2 hours on a Friday night, tremendous. So thank you very much.
Good stuff. Safe journey home, everyone.